This is a download from the BBC. To find out more and for our terms of use, please go to bbc.co.uk. Hello. Around 2,000 babies are born in the UK each day. George Alexander Louis is no ordinary baby boy, of course. He's third in line to the throne. But even so, did his entry into the world deserve the extraordinarily extensive treatment the BBC gave it? Many feedback listeners think not.
Enough. She's not the first or the last woman to have a baby.
Also, more on the return of Operation Dropout. And dropping in will be the man who is responsible for ensuring nothing goes wrong with those live links. But something has gone wrong.
I wish it was just a golden thing we can go, that's it, and we fix it for everybody. It's something which is actually quite difficult to tackle.
And we go behind the scenes at Woman's Hour to learn about the role of the studio manager, the only person who can silence the Queen of Radio 4 herself, Dame Jenny.
People turn up late, they get stuck on trains, all of those kind of things. And Bob is just ready.
There's an awful lot of eye contact, nods, winks through the glass that indicate what may or may not be happening in the cubicle.
Ah, the love that dare not speak its name. But first, a story about the consummation of love and its fruit, ripe and ready to fall from the tree.
In the last few seconds, the news has come that the Duchess of Cambridge has been admitted to St Mary's Hospital in London in the early stages of labour.
A news flash on Monday's Today programme, quickly followed by an interview with the BBC's Peter Hunt outside St Mary's Hospital. Evan Davis, for one, didn't seem entirely sure there was much to add to the bare facts.
Peter, have I just said everything you know about the story, or is there more you can tell us?
No, I can gallantly go on. I mean, there are several...
In fact, Peter Hunt had quite a lot to say about the protocols of announcing the royal birth.
The notice will be driven to Buckingham Palace. It will be placed in a frame. The frame will be placed on an easel in the grounds of the palace, and that is the point at which the world will know whether it is a boy or whether it is a girl.
Peter, good work, mate.
He's been practising that.
Yeah, very good.
So far, so enlightening. But already some on today's Twitter feed were crying, "Hold! Enough!"
"Ooh, royal baby on the way," says Today. Struggling to muster even passing interest, I'm afraid.
9-month-plus pregnant woman goes into labour. Top news story?
Yes, it was the top news story, and the prestigious 8:10 interview, bumping the government's big new initiative on internet porn into second place. In fact, it was top story, even though there was nothing new to report, on every news bulletin and in World at 1 and PM till 7 o'clock that evening. Listeners Douglas Hardy and TJ Alexander had long since switched off by then.
I'm sure I'm not the only person baffled by the BBC's completely disproportionate coverage of the royal birth.
Plenty more to come from here, of course. None of it news.
Did we really need the information that nothing had happened and no information had been released?
But until then, we're going to be speculating about this royal birth with no facts.
This is Douglas Hardy calling from London. I just wanted to say that what I thought was a bit strange was all the medical references. Like I heard a couple of times reporters saying that labour itself has its own complications. Is that news?
The duration of labour can vary widely, but the main phase takes an average of 8 to 10 hours for first-time mothers.
When I'd send the email into you was when they mentioned Sophie Wessex. What has Sophie Wessex's difficult labour got to do with this?
Then, at just after 8:30 p.m, some genuine bona fide news.
The Duchess of Cambridge, as the statement says, has been delivered of a son.
It's a boy. The World Tonight's baby monitor is firmly on. The royal baby has arrived.
Even the august World Tonight had caught the bug, though they were covering other stories as well.
And why wolves enjoy a good bit of group howling. That's all coming up on The World Tonight at 10.
As the blanket coverage continued, so did the howls of protest from listeners.
My name's Jude Connor. I'm from Bristol. You've overdone it on Today, World at 1, PM and all the rest. Millions of us don't care.
N. Williamson. Why has the Today programme, the BBC's flagship programme for serious news coverage, covered the birth of a baby boy as if the programme was a down-market tabloid? Today's saturation coverage of a natural occurrence was nauseating to listen to, and, I suspect, an embarrassment to the two professional presenters who happened to be in the chair on that day.
There'll no doubt be the photo call on the steps of the building when we get the first glimpse, and the world has a chance to coo.
I'm Alan. I'm calling from Worthing on the south coast. I understand the constitutional significance of the birth. and I'm not at all anti-royal. And good luck to the couple and good luck to the baby. It's a lovely thing having a new child, but it's just that the most of us don't need it rammed down our throats every 5 minutes.
Plenty of listeners' questions then to put to BBC News. But unfortunately, no one was available for interview on feedback. They did, however, acknowledge the number and force of the comments about the coverage by issuing a statement on the complaints page of the BBC website, and sent one to us as well.
This was a huge story in the UK and abroad. It was an historic event with millions of people tuning into our coverage. Over the past few days, the birth of the royal baby has been a lead story for BBC News, but our editors have taken care that other stories have been covered too. We've reported on the Prime Minister's announcement on internet restrictions on pornography, the Help to Buy mortgage scheme, the Pope's visit to Brazil, Chris Froome's win in the Tour de France, and the charging of a man for the murder of PC Keith Blakelock, which led the Radio 4 6 o'clock news on Tuesday evening. We have also been careful to feature a range of contributors and opinions across our coverage, including those who do not support the monarchy or the attention this event has received.
So, what do you think? Perhaps some of you do feel the coverage was informative and proportionate for such an event, but have so far kept your thoughts to yourself. Do let us know. And now it's time to tune in, turn on, and drop out. Last week we relaunched Operation Dropout, feedback listeners' vigilant watch on dodgy mobiles, dropped lines and dead air, a year after we stood you all down. We were prompted to rally the troops after listener Jeff Petty wrote to us about a particularly bad case of disappearing interviews on the Today programme. He asked,
I'd like to know why the Today programme has such fragile telephone lines. I've used a telephone for a very long time. Shall I come and give the Today programme a lesson?
Adrian Pearson from Preston. Since Radio 4 News moved to new premises, the telephony seems to have gone downhill and on some occasions could be described as abysmal, which makes life difficult for both presenters and listeners. Sometimes calls to interviewees can't be put through or they come on late, which makes the interview disjointed. This is understandable in out-of-the-way places like Afghanistan, but sometimes it's just down the road at Westminster. What is the BBC doing to improve the situation?
Hello, my name is Grant Thompson. Given that we're supposed to have wonderful communications these days, the BBC always seem to be losing contact with their interviewees. And it drives me up the wall. It certainly used to be better in my recollection. Thank you. Bye.
Well, Grant, as you've heard, you're not the only listener who thinks things ain't what they used to be. So, armed with listeners' points, I went to see Andy Bocking, the technology controller for BBC Journalism, and asked him whether there were more breakdowns than ever.
No, the cases are not getting worse. I think we've got a level of issues with connectivity from time to time. There is no systemic problem with those. So in other words, it's not always, should we say, some of that new technology. Sometimes it's some of our older technology, such as ISDNs. Sometimes it's satellite trucks. It's a variety of reasons, and it's something which is actually quite difficult to tackle. I wish it was just a golden thing we can go, that's it, and we fix it for everybody.
And so it's nothing to do with the move to News's move back into the new news centre here at Broadcasting House.
Absolutely not. So I think part of that move back into the news centre has actually brought benefits to the viewers and listeners. Remember, this is TV and radio here. I think we've seen a better quality because what we've actually done, we've enabled a lot more of that technology to be available in radio studios, which has meant actually, if you look at things like Today, I think it sounds better than it did in Television Centre. I think it does have a problem with when we then have, so we say, a poor telephone call. It stands out a bit like a sore thumb, frankly.
Well, maybe that's so, but a lot of our listeners would disagree, and they also would note that the Today programme seems to have particular problems. Let's listen to what happened last Monday on the 15th of July. The first case, an interview with Baroness Corston.
That was Kay talking to me earlier. Lady Corston is on the line. Good morning. Hello, Baroness Corston, can you hear me?
Yeah. Still on the phone.
Hello, can you hear me, Lady Corston?
Hello?
Ah, yes, good. Sorry, we've had terrible trouble with our lines this morning. I don't know if you were hearing what Kay was...
OK, what happened then?
So what happened there was we had a satellite vehicle And unfortunately, the link failed just as we went to air. We don't know why it failed. It can be a number of reasons. Remember that, that circuit's going 72,000 kilometres, and it could be in the first few metres, i.e. as it leaves the truck. It could be somebody walking across the beam, which might have caused a problem. It could equally well be to other users of that satellite capacity causing the BBC a problem. Or it could be even a rain shower and where that signal's received.
Well, there's an obvious question here. If you don't know what the cause is, then you're talking about a technology which is vulnerable and which is questionable, therefore, for its use. So why do you allow such links to be used if they go wrong and you don't know why they go wrong?
We've been using satellite connectivity for a very, very long time. And actually, for the majority of time that we use it, is extremely reliable. If it wasn't reliable, if it was flaky, to be clear, we wouldn't be using it.
But it does go wrong. Does this mean that in order to go to people in different locations, as opposed to bringing them into a BBC studio, you are saying there will always be an element of risk?
I think that's a risk we've actually been taking for a long time, because you remember the old radio cars? Equally, they could be quite dodgy. You could hear your interviewee and then suddenly it would go fading out and that could be purely due to atmospheric conditions. So I don't think it's particularly unique with satellite vehicles per se. All of those technologies have certain risks and issues.
But what I deduce from that is you're saying as long as we continue to use this form of technology, problems will occur in the future. That's inevitable.
I think it comes part and parcel with doing live news.
Let's go and look at this second case in that same Today programme. And this was when they were talking to the BBC's home editor, Mark Easton. He wasn't in the studio, of course.
Pop that in. Where can I afford to live to get one of those houses at...
He's been dehoused.
Gosh. Mark, can you hear us?
All right, Andy Bocking. Where did Mark Easton go?
I really do wish I knew. The circuit occasionally do drop out and do fail. There was an option, as they said in the production, to actually go back to him later, but the production decided that they wouldn't go back to him.
There is a revolution, obviously, in communications, a continuous revolution now. When something comes up, does the BBC have in, as it were, additional requirements or testing that it places on a commercial product like that?
That's a really interesting question, because actually some of this technology actually comes up from the floor, from journalists, and say, I found this latest app, and we will test those to make sure that they are fit for purpose and actually give us the levels of reliability and stuff like that which we require for broadcast.
You won't just say to us, OK, use it, try it out on air.
No. We might use it if we're doing something from the front in Syria or something like that, and that is the only way to get something back, it's the only thing which will find its way through, then yes, we will use it, because actually we want that editorial leverage to get that material back. What we will do after that is then potentially bring that back in, look at its viability, look at its problems, in terms of is it stable enough for what we want to do, looking at the usability factor for journalists to make sure that it's simple and easy to use it.
But ultimately, will you ever say to the editor of the Today programme, you cannot use that technology?
If I thought there was a significant risk, I wouldn't say ban it, but I would say, look, I would avoid using it at all costs, but give them a good rationale behind it in terms of it loses connectivity. It doesn't sound very good. Those sorts of parameters around the back of it.
So what we conclude from this is that the Today programme, and presume other news programmes, will continue to have lines, links go down, and that we've just got to accept it. Is that true?
Accept it? No. I think that we work very, very hard, both operationally and in the technology space, to mitigate these as much as reasonably practicable. But I think if we look at the level of faults we have today, and we look at the level of faults we've had in the past, I think you'll find they are fairly equal. And in bearing in mind the amount of live content that we now have on things such as the Today programme, yes, there are risks when we do these live activities, but I don't think it's any worse. I think the inevitability of live broadcasting is there will be occasional failures. And I think on the 15th, we just had a bad day in the office in half an hour.
Our thanks to Andy Bocking, the dropout czar, otherwise known as the BBC's technology controller for journalism. Somebody we never interview when things are going well. But is he right to be so upbeat? Do tell us what you think. Last Friday, I went to the BBC Proms, now in their 119th season, and witnessed an extraordinary debut by a gawky 18-year-old pianist from Canada. When he had finished, The roof almost came off as the applause went on and on and on. How was he spotted? And how do you put together the programmes and performers for 75 proms spread over 2 months? The director of the proms, Roger Wright, who's also controller of Radio 3, is coming on to Feedback to answer those questions and any others that you, the listener, want to ask. So please get in touch as soon as possible. You can write to us at Feedback, PO Box 67234, London SE1P 4AX, or leave a phone message on 03 333 444 544. Standard landline charges apply, but it could cost more on some mobile networks. Or you can send an email to feedback@bbc.co.uk, or you can tweet at bbcr4feedback. All those details are, of course, on our website. Now, time for some radio magic. Sometimes a programme can stop you in your tracks and unexpectedly move you to tears when you're simply going about the everyday business of cooking, cleaning, or, in the case of Carol Jury, having a lunch break.
Every afternoon I take a late lunch so that I can listen to the afternoon drama on Radio 4. The one on Monday the 22nd of July, Irongate, was one of the most moving pieces I've ever listened to.
Where are you going, in fact?
I don't want to. I intended not to explain, not to talk to anyone.
But you can.
Because it can't be explained, not really. And who would understand?
You can tell me.
As I walked around the lake, I didn't even realise that tears were streaming down my face, and the last 5 minutes hit like an emotional sledgehammer. And when I returned to work, I was so emotionally awestruck that I couldn't even explain to colleagues what the play had been about.
I've seen it before, all along the path. A girl sits on the steps by the boathouse, crying, or an old man stands at the top of the slope at Chiswick, hour after hour, looking...
I won't reveal the ending and spoil it for anyone, but it took my breath away. I consider my licence fee worth every penny for this drama alone.
Well, I missed it, but on the basis of that recommendation, I'll make sure I catch up with Irongate on the iPlayer, where it will remain available until Monday afternoon. Now, they're the guardians of sound, the unsung heroes of the studio, the ones who keep their heads when all about them are losing theirs. They are the BBC studio managers, and their role is to ensure everything at BBC Radio sounds the way it should do, and to get it back on track when it doesn't. Without them, you'd have cause to write to us far more frequently. They're also anonymous, unlike the presenters and producers they serve, but occasionally they do get recognised. This was the Today programme a few weeks ago.
Before we go, a special thank you today and good luck to one of our studio managers, Veronica Chung, with 30 years at the BBC, 24 years looking after us very regularly in the early mornings, retiring at the weekend.
She's beaming through the glass, Veronica, she always does every morning.
We wish you well.
One of the legends of the radio cubicle who still walks the BBC corridors is senior studio manager Bob Nettles. The bearded, avuncular, mad keen cricket fan has been at the BBC for over 30 years, working on sport and news, and is now to be found twiddling the knobs on programmes like Woman's Hour, Loose Ends and Saturday Live. He's also engineered the BBC's coverage of some of the biggest events of the last 25 years, including the funerals of Princess Diana and Margaret Thatcher. We joined him bright and early at 10 to 8 in the morning as he set up for Woman's Hour and awaited the arrival of Dame Jenny Murray.
Right, so the first thing we need to do is just set up the studio. Not a major change, but... So Jenny's sitting here, there's the clock just on the left, cue light, spare microphone, talk back to us. I do sort of feel quite often that I am sort of the representation of the listener, and I'm getting all this stuff put together in a fashion that I would want to listen to when I get home.
Is Dundee up, Bob? Oh, I haven't got that rubbish SM again, have I? I'm one of these old-fashioned presenters. I like my old Bakelite headphones. I don't like digital clocks. And Bob always makes sure everything is just right.
An awful lot of my job, I think, is a reassuring face. There's an awful lot of eye contact, nods, winks through the glass that indicate what may or may not be happening in the cubicle.
Right, who haven't we got?
Rada. She's stuck on a train. It's very unlikely she can get here. We are going to replace her with a 7-minute doc.
People turn up late, they get stuck on trains, all of those kind of things. And Bob is just ready. And fun.
Billie Jean King, we believe, is she in the building?
I've not seen her.
We've not seen her, but she's on the running order. If something goes wrong on Radio 1 or Radio 2, well, you can just play another record. Whereas Radio 4, because every little point is checked, then anything goes astray, it really stands out. Lovely. I'll leave you there. We'll be with you fairly shortly. Okay. Thank you. We are desperate to get it back on track, but it's best to get it back on track properly rather than continue to scramble around for the very reason that you expect the quality of the output.
Tomorrow's programme will be about the resurgence of feminism. What's drawing a new generation to feminism and how they're using social media to connect.
Right, so that's Woman's Hour finished, and we're just now moving off to the next thing of the day, the next booking, which is editing and mixing for Desert Island Discs. So there we go, just adjusting, tweaking the levels, hang on, that's a bit loud, there we go.
I'm Cathy Tristar, I'm series producer of Desert Island Discs. The role of the studio manager is really important. They're the last pair of ears that listen across all your work before it hits the ears of the audience. And the last thing you want as a producer is for the audience to notice anything other than what your guest or your interviewee is saying, because everything is geared towards audience enjoyment of what you have put your effort into.
Hello, Feedback. My name is Dudley Swain. It seems that it's impossible to hear an intelligent speech without a background of music. Poor hearing people, they just won't hear half the things.
Music under speech is something that we're constantly aware of actually really concentrating on, because it's one of the things that really upsets the listener when it's wrong. And I think with Desert Island Disc, one of the real problems depends on the type of music that's being chosen. And I remember Michael Caine had some dance music in his.
Very romantic song, but a bit of a beat to it.
There was nothing that I could say. Turned your back and you just walked away.
And the problem is then you've got a really loud beat type music that you would expect on Radio 1, but of course the people are having a normal quiet Radio 4 time conversation. And what's tricky then is to make sure that we've got the one thing loud enough for you to hear and the other one not too loud that you have to turn it down. So it's sometimes quite tricky to get that balance. What I do, and what's quite important, I set my studio loudspeakers at a level that is comfortable to listen to. So when I come to the music, I'm like you in your sofa, sitting, listening to your hi-fi or whatever. I don't want to have to turn the volume of my loudspeakers up and down. I'm making my music fit to that speech. OK, this is just the last bit.
Right, it's yours. Jane Somerville, thank you very much for letting us hear your Desert Island Discs.
Thank you for asking me. It's wonderful.
And there we are. That's the end of the programme, and that's the end of our session here. So, let's change some chairs around. There's Steve's thing, there's his clock.
I'm Andrew Smith, editor of The Media Show. The SM's crucial to The Media Show. We very often have late-breaking stories. They work under a lot of pressure and with very good humour. Bob's, probably the best exponent of that.
Hi, here we are above.
Hello.
There we go. And it's 19 and 38, 39.
It's a very vital role, really, in terms of making the programme sound professional and up-to-date.
Right, so what I've got here now is an interview that we pre-recorded a moment or two ago. It's got some slightly flaky telephone line on it. What we're going to do is I'm going to try to clean up as many of the ums and ers as we can, because the theory is you might be able to understand it better if you're not getting all the slurring and the umming and the erring and things. So let's crack on with that.
Yes, I was really surprised.
Right, there we go. So I'll do that. So I'll just check the edits.
Hi, this is Simon Keane. I write to comment upon the increasingly bad standards of interviews conducted over the telephone or web programs such as Skype. The quality is so bad that you can't understand half of what's being said.
Henry Porter and Stephen Glover, and apologies for the quality of some of the line there. I should also say...
It's interesting that listeners pick up on that point about the poor quality of lines. That's an interesting example we've just had there. Both the contributors are on telephones. Now, that's not something we would normally want to do. You end up with this sort of decision on a more topical programme. Do you sort of go with a not the greatest quality thing, but you end up with the piece? Because if you try to get something in better quality, you can't run the story at all. When you get a poor quality telephone line, absolutely, I hate that as much as any of the listeners at home. It really is, I find it really quite offensive to put out. And really, I wouldn't do it unless we really had to.
So thanks for listening, and do join us again next week. Same time, same place.
Thank you very much.
Presented by Steve Hewlett, and the producer was Simon Tillotson.
When you're a young producer, I don't think you quite realise what a team effort the programme is. And I think as you get more experience, you realise how important the studio managers are. The best SMs are able to really contribute to the programme all round. The producer who just regards them as technical people is missing out on an awful lot of experience at the game.
And I think it's that collaborative, creative process that I enjoy. I like it when it's all smooth and calm and quiet and it all goes together nicely. It's quite nice being a cog in a machine that works well. So I better close up for the night. Yeah, today's been rather fun, actually. I've quite enjoyed it, really. We had a few run-arounds with various bits and pieces this morning with Woman's Hour, various guests being delayed, and this afternoon has had its moments with the media show. So tomorrow morning, back again, 8 o'clock, another Woman's Hour. That's it. I'm off.
Our thanks to Senior Studio Manager Bob Nettles and to Jenny Murray, Kathy Drysdale and Andy Smith. Oh, and thank you to Feedback's own studio manager, Tom Brignall, who brings calm out of chaos.
Roger, sounding a little bit boxy in the low mids, I'm afraid.
Now, before we go, James Alexander Gordon, one of the most loved voices in broadcasting, is retiring because of ill health. James has been reading the football results on BBC Radio for 40 years, and even non-sports fans will be familiar with his distinctive tones.
For instance, if Arsenal have lost, well, I'm sorry for them. If Manchester United have won, I'm happy for them. So it would go something like this. Arsenal won, Manchester United 2, and so on and so forth. Simple as that. Of course, one day I'd love to read out on the air. 4 for Athletic, 5 is 5-4.
News of James's retirement prompted listener Oriel Britton to get in touch with a suggestion.
I was sorry to hear that James Alexander Gordon has retired from reading the classified results and wish him and his family well. It seems indecently soon to suggest a replacement to follow in his footsteps, but I have had an idea. My suggestion is the BBC could run a competition to find a successor. Any member of the public could ring a number and record a telephone audition. Training would be given to the successful candidate. Just an idea. Hope you like it.
Thanks, Oriel. We'll put your suggestion to the powers that be. In the meantime, give us a call on our usual number, available from the website, to show us how you shape up as a sports broadcaster. No guarantee of a job, obviously, just for fun. Here's my effort. Manchester United 0, Carlisle United 8. Goodbye.
Peter, good work, mate.
He's been
Thanks very
practising
much.
that.
Yeah, very good.
So far, so enlightening. But already some on today's Twitter feed were crying, "Hold! Enough!"
Ooh, royal baby on the way, says Today. Struggling to muster even passing interest, I'm afraid.
9-month-plus pregnant woman goes into labour. Top news story?
Yes, it was the top news story, and the prestigious 8:10 interview, bumping the government's big new initiative on internet porn into second place. In fact, it was top story, even though there was nothing new to report, on every news bulletin and in World at 1 and PM till 7 o'clock that evening. Listeners Douglas Hardy and TJ Alexander had long since switched off by then.
I'm sure I'm not the only person baffled by the BBC's completely disproportionate coverage of the royal birth.
Plenty more to come from here, of course. None of it news.
Did we really need the information that nothing had happened and no information had been released?
But until then, we're going to be speculating about this royal birth with no facts.
This is Douglas Hardy calling from London. I just wanted to say that what I thought was a bit strange was all the medical references. Like I heard a couple of times reporters saying that labour itself has its own complications. Is that news?
The duration of labour can vary widely, but the main phase takes an average of 8 to 10 hours for first-time.
Those live links. But something has gone wrong.
I wish it was just a golden thing we can go, that's it, and we fix it for everybody. It's something which is actually quite difficult to tackle.
And we go behind the scenes at Woman's Hour to learn about the role of the studio manager, the only person who can silence the Queen of Radio 4 herself, Dame Jenny.
People turn up late, they get stuck on trains, all of those kind of things. And Bob is just ready.
There's an awful lot of eye contact, nods, winks through the glass that indicate what may or may not be happening in the cubicle.
Ah, the love that dare not speak its name. But first, a story about the consummation of love and its fruit, ripe and ready to fall from the tree.
In the last few seconds, the news has come that the Duchess of Cambridge has been admitted to St Mary's Hospital in London in the early stages of labour.
A news flash on Monday's Today programme, quickly followed by an interview with the BBC's Peter Hunt outside St Mary's Hospital. Evan Davis, for one, didn't seem entirely sure there was much to add to the bare facts.
Peter, have I just said everything you know about the story, or is there more you can tell us?
No, I can gallantly go on. I mean, there are several...
In fact, Peter Hunt had quite a lot to say about the protocols of announcing the royal birth.
The notice will be driven to Buckingham Palace. It will be placed in a frame. The frame will be placed on an easel in the grounds of the palace, and that is the point at which the world will know whether it is a boy or whether it is a girl.
This is a download from the BBC. To find out more and for our terms of use, please go to bbc.co.uk. Hello. Around 2,000 babies are born in the UK each day. George Alexander Louis is no ordinary baby boy, of course. He's third in line to the throne. But even so, did his entry into the world deserve the extraordinarily extensive treatment the BBC gave it? Many feedback listeners think not.
Enough. She's not the first or the last woman to have a baby.
Also, more on the return of Operation Dropout. And dropping in will be the man who is responsible for ensuring nothing goes wrong with